Welcome to the Stuff and Things Podcast, your home for all stuff related to your favorite things in entertainment. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello everybody! As the music suggests, we are back discussing Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. I am Sam. Joining me to discuss episode 3 of season 1 of the show, it's my partner in crime, it's Stefan!
No, I am Stefan. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad mate. Obviously it's a bit surreal here in the UK at the moment, following the passing of Her Majesty. Which I didn't think we could do a show without mentioning. This is our first show since we are now under the reign of Charles III.
It's an interesting kind of time.
It is very strange, but we shall not dwell. We shall focus on the show. It is Lord of the Rings. It is the Rings of Power. It's season 1. It's episode 3, and the title of the episode was
Adar.
Yeah, I think that's how you say it. Adar.
In this, it could be Adar. They seem to all roll their R's.
Yeah, I can't though. I actually genuinely can't roll my R's.
No, that's as good as I get.
No, I sound like a Wookiee underwater. No.
This is why I let you do all the names on this show. I'm just like that character, because I'm like, no, I could never. I always wanted to be an actor. My worst nightmare would be kind of like cast into this, and they go, so this is your script, and me just look at it and go, no.
And then taking the script off you and saying goodbye.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and work on something else. Yeah.
So yeah, is Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Now, before we dive into the episode, this is 3 episodes in to the season. It's kind of, it's a very differently paced show. Me and you have kind of discussed this. Anyone who watched the Lord of the Rings movies, which are like 3.5, if you watch the director's cut, they're like 3.5, 4 hours long each. These things are epic. Everything's there.
Oh yeah.
The scale is insane. And it is real kind of dialogue heavy, real scene heavy, real character heavy. And they're incredible. The movies are incredible. They're masterpieces, but they're not ones that, you know, you're just going to put on casually. These are epic watches. These are ones you got to be in the mood for. and I kind of feel like with the show,
we'll binge watch one evening. Yeah.
Yeah, no. That's not. I mean, that's a good week. You know, that's a good week's worth of watching right there. And I kind of feel like with the show that they've gone for the same kind of scale, the same kind of epicness, and it is visually everything about it is fantastic. I'm not convinced it works for episodic weekly television. It kind of, you know, you watch a show, and you kind of need that mixture of character development, a bit of action, you know, something that moves the story along, but at the same time you get a story within the episode. If you see where I'm going with that, it's kind of like overarching story, individual story for the episode, so you get like a sense of resolution at the end of the episode, even though the bigger picture is still forming. I've kind of found with this, it feels like chapters of a book that's just building, which is fine, and I'm not being critical of that. I'm just saying I'm not convinced for weekly episodic television that works. When you think of like a Netflix kind of model where they go, right, it's 10 episodes of this, go for it, and they do that where it's chapter after chapter, and you're like, oh, this is really building. You know, this is building towards something. And then you get into the later episodes and it's like wallop. You know, you go from kind of like, oh, I'll watch an episode a day. And then you get to like episode 7 of whatever the show is, and you're like, yeah, it's 4 a.m. I had to keep watching. You know, it built to the point that you just had to watch that finale. I kind of feel like that's the model really for episodic television, and this is weekly, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm articulating it very well. It just doesn't feel like a television show. It feels like a movie that's being broken down over several weeks.
I think you're spot on in that sense. Like, it's been made by almost like it's the same model as the trilogy was made.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is this epic thing to watch, and it's going to build up. And I think we said last week, you know, until you got to the Battle of Helm's Deep, not that much really happened in Lord of the Rings. And that was like, you know, a movie and 3/4 into it.
Yeah,
it was all learn the characters, learn the journey, learn about what they're doing, why they're doing it, where they're doing it.
You kind of had scrapes, didn't you? You know, like the end of Fellowship of the Ring, you lose Boromir, and you have that kind of fight. But again, it's not like the battle for Helm's Deep is just cinematic gold. It is just kind of you say that to people, and most people, even if they're not massive fans, be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that." You know, I've seen that clipped, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're right. It kind of built and built and built, and then you had that Battle of Helm's Deep, and everything kind of went, oof, and then it built again, you know, and so you do have that with this show, which is kind of, I'm 3 episodes in. I am enjoying it. I'm not being critical of the show. I'm just saying it's 3 episodes in, and I feel like I've kind of only just scratched the surface, and I know they're planning like 5 seasons of this. And what I'm hoping for is that they do have a plan where, although they're telling this big story, they do have smaller stuff that's going to get resolved and happen, because at the moment, if it's every single episode is just pieces in a puzzle for this massive story, you could find a lot of the audience just kind of like, oh no, I'll tell you what, I'm going to zone out, and when they put all the episodes on, I'll watch it again. Do you see what I mean by that?
100%. So I think this episode was 70 minutes long.
Yeah.
And, you know, minus the stuff that happened in the trench and things like that. So the stuff that happened in the trench, bit of action, which we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
Bit of action, kind of like, yeah, something's happening. Apart from that, it was lots of people kind of talking, and I must be honest, so I've started watching this with the wife.
Yeah.
This episode, I think she spent more time on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
Than watching it. It just hasn't. Whereas, you know, we're also doing the House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
She's asking to watch that. Can we watch that tonight? And I'm like, no, it's weekly. It's not.
Yeah, well, the House of the... I think it's an interesting comparison, because with it being the fantasy genre, it's very easy to say they're going head-to-head, and it is, you know... The thing I would say is, obviously, Tolkien wrote... I mean, I always said this about... When I first started telling people about Game of Thrones, I said it's like Lord of the Rings, but for grown-ups. It's like Lord of the Rings, but 18 plus, you know, the R-rated...
Very horny grown-ups,
Yeah, very, yeah. And it was kind of like...
I think you're spot on, actually, to be fair.
Yeah. And,
pretty much spot on.
And I kind of... That was kind of like my initial thing. Now, they are very different kind of worlds. I mean, George R. Martin, who wrote Game of Thrones books, he based everything around Westeros on what was happening with England, you know, with the War of the Roses and things like that. And if you even look at the map of Westeros, it's like one country, and then you got Essos, which is basically Europe, you know. So he kind of created this world which was very medieval, very... Obviously, it's fantasy, there's dragons and White Walkers, but it was kind of very medieval, grotesque, which it was. The Dark Age and stuff like that was a real brutal, horrible place. And Game of Thrones depicts that. Now, the Lord of the Rings universe obviously wants to try and... It doesn't need that. It doesn't show us brothels. It doesn't show us absolute gratuitous violence everywhere.
No.
Because it's trying to be a more... dare I say, family version. You can have the kids in the room when you're watching this. You can't with House... Well, I will judge you if you have the kids in the room watching House of the Dragon.
Agreed.
Especially the latest episode. But I think, you can make the comparison because it's fantasy, but I do think they are very different shows. You know, it's like... Yeah, like comparing DC and Marvel shows like Peacemaker to She-Hulk.
Exactly, they're both superheroes. It's all the same. No. It's very different.
Very different. Very different. Both comedic, both kind of superhero genre, but very different tones. Yeah. Peacemaker is very much 18. Is 18 plus.
Oh yeah.
She-Hulk's trying to be that kind of 12A kind of young teenage humor, slapstick sort of stuff. So. Like I said, I think it's very different shows, but I'm enjoying both. I know from our conversation, you like your wife, I'm guessing, found episode 3 quite long, quite drawn out, a little bit hard to follow.
Yeah, like I said, there's certain parts of it that I'm really into. So like Arondir.
Yeah.
Arondir?
Yeah, I'm saying it is Arondir, yeah.
Arondir, his character, his arc, I'm all in on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really enjoying like kind of what's going on, because we're finding out about the orcs and what's going on and why they're building these trenches. And I'm kind of I'm in on that because it's there, it's happening. I'm like, okay, I've got a bit of something for this one. Yeah. Nori, I've got to be honest, Nori is starting to annoy me just a little bit. Yeah. I think she's just like typical teenage. Remember like when we did The Walking Dead and it was Carl, stay in the house. Where's Carl?
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
She's very much on that story arc.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of, you sit there and like almost like face palm, like, oh, come on, kid. Oh, But it's part of her character, and I understand that. Yeah. So I'm not getting annoyed at the show and the story writing. I'm getting annoyed at the character, which I think is kind of what they're pushing for. So
I was going to say that's kind of I think it's kind of the point. The face palming at teenage behaviour is kind of like, yeah.
So that's working, even though I'm watching it going, oh, God. It's working, and I'm still watching it. And I think the one I said to you was about the
Galadriel, yeah.
Galadriel. Like, her character, when you explained it to me, it made it easier for me, I must be honest. There was like, there's so much arrogance and stuff. I'm kind of there going, oh, what are you doing? And then you said to me, she's an elf. They're humans. They think they're above the humans. And I'm like, actually, do you know what? Yeah, that is how I'd expect that to work. So
and it's kind of interesting because I before I ever read Lord of the Rings or before I watched Lord of the Rings, I was quite into. Me and my friends played the Warhammer game, which is obviously fantasy and stuff like that. Warhammer, and I remember but this was the original, the fantasy version, and I picked an elf army because I thought, they look cool, they'll be fun to paint, they look badass. Yep. And I was kind of, and I very much, it's kind of weird. My hobby was the painting, crafting side of it. Playing the actual game, I was crap. But, military strategy, etc., I kind of loved that. But the magic aspect of it, and I was like, what? I want to fight. I want, to move my units around, head to head. No, I've cast a dragon and you're dead. Oh, great, brilliant. Yeah. That annoyed me. So from my point of view, it was like the hobby was kind of like, so I picked this out for, and I remember my friend's older brother said to me, he was like, oh, never trust an elf. And I was like, what? And he was like, in the lore of all of these things, like dwarves, like elves betrayed them, cut their beards off and did stuff like that. And they think they're above everyone. They're like arrogant as hell. So when I did read the Lord of the Rings books, and it was kind of like the same sort of thing, this fantasy kind of notion, I've always had that. I've always had that thing about elves where they kind of look down on everyone. And probably, think about it, they're thousands of years old. They do view humans as babies, basically. It's kind of like, oh look at you walking and talking, you clever little human, you. And it's patronizing, and it is really kind of, and the interaction she has with the guy she survived on the boat with, he kind of just like snaps back at her, just like treats her a bit crappy, and you can almost see she's taken aback by, like, how dare you? I'm Galadriel. How dare you speak to me like that? And he just won't listen to it, and he takes over. And we get those scenes where she's in the throne room and she is so arrogant. She's in front of the queen of this island who have banned elves, and she doesn't know why. And we don't really understand why yet either. But she walks in there like she runs the place. And really, she's probably going to get her head cut off if not for the companion she's with stepping in going, okay, I can see this is going really badly.
He literally saves her life again.
Yeah, he does. And But like you said to me, it's like, I don't get, like, she is being so arrogant. But again, because I've had this thing in my head all the time, to me, I looked at it and went, yeah, that's an elf.
Yeah,
that's an elf. Yeah, yeah.
I think once you broke it down to me, it's kind of like, stop looking at it as that's like her character's like that. Think of it more as that is what elves would be like to humans. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the stuff I've already seen and gone, actually,
I see. Yeah, I can see where.
Yeah, it makes sense. That is literally what they'd be like. You know, you're going to keep me prisoner here. Pfft, I'm an elf. Come on.
Exactly.
I'm just going to walk out that door, get a boat, and I'm on. See you later.
And is that level of kind of arrogance which you can understand why people don't like them. Like when we talked about the episodes before, that Arondir was on patrol, and the humans were in that village, were ready to fight him almost. You can understand, that kind of feeling, that uneasiness. But you talked about the Arondir kind of storyline, so we'll focus on there to begin with, and then we'll head back to Galadriel, and then we'll finish with the Harfoots for a laugh.
Okay.
But Arondir is captured. We saw that at the end of episode 2, and he is captured by orcs, and we discover where all those villagers have gone, and we also discover several elves have been taken, and he's thrown in with them. And they're basically digging. They're digging trenches. One of the things which is a throwaway line in the Fellowship of the Ring is that Saruman, etc., they bred orcs that could move by day. They're not infected by the sunlight, the Orokai.
Yeah.
And in this, you see that the goblins, the orcs, these creatures genuinely are burned by the sun. So they are creating these trenches, etc., so they can enclose them, so they can move around underground, move around, and, come up and do what they want to do. But it was quite an interest. To me, that was such a interesting detail thing that was thrown in, and also such an interesting, like I said, it was almost like a throwaway thing in the films, and I read the book so long ago, it's lost on me. But then when I watched this, I was like, oh wow. So in this particular moment, in this particular age,
they cannot walk during the day, literally.
So this is a big thing. If you're living in a village, nighttime's a bitch.
You don't want to be sleeping during the night.
No. Nighttime you're awake and you are on guard. Get a bit of kip in the day. It's just a very interesting reality of this world, and they have there's several scenes here which are kind of interesting. The interesting thing about there's a line talk about one of the elves says to him, they're going from village to village looking for something. I think we as the audience know what that is. Yeah. It's that broken sword, the hilt that little sod Bronwyn's son has got. Which basically means... Hidden in his backpack. Yep. Yeah, which basically means that group of people are not safe.
And a lot of people are dying and being kept captive because the sod has got the sword.
Because they can't find it. That is, we didn't see them in this episode, and I'm wondering where that's going to go, because they're heading to the wall in the tower where the elves are, obviously for safety. That when they get there, they're obviously going to tell the elves, look, this is what's going on. I'm guessing Bronwyn's going to say, look, one of yours, Arondir, went looking, and they're going to realise he's missing. Does that mean they're going to send out a patrol and look? Yeah, so I'm hoping we're going to get some more of that in episode 4. Yeah. But like I said, that was an interesting bit of information. The information about the sunlight, obviously that was big, and although a lot of people probably already knew that, I felt that was kind of quite a big story point. The bit about the tree and kind of chopping down the tree, again, the kind of elves, mystical, the tree's part of this land. It's been here long before you crawl out of whatever vile hole you crawled
from. I loved it.
And this is, it leads to a scene which you really didn't like, which is where one of the elves has his throat cut.
No, the battle and the scene and everything else I thought was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. him being sensible enough to cut down the tarpaulin bits above their heads.
Yeah,
They could.
I thought that
all
was
of it
good,
was
yeah.
great. Even like chaining up the wog underneath the tree using the roots and the chains and stuff. All of it was fantastic. And then an elf gets his throat slit and with hardly any blood at all dies. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Well,
Don't be silly now.
I know exactly what you're saying. You're not wrong. I think here is again a demonstration of a difference between a House of the Dragon rated 18 and a 12 Lord of the Rings Rings of Power.
They can't spray everyone in a 3-foot variety of blood splurting everywhere.
I don't think we're going to get the kind of...
In Game of Thrones, Arondir is literally spitting the blood out of his face, going, Jesus.
Literally, it is like soaking everyone, and it's gross, and you're going, oh, no, that's awful. But the thing is, what is interesting, and I think perhaps I'm like this a little bit, and I think you are, we're watching the two shows at the same time. They are both fantasy, and so you watch an episode of House of the Dragon and you watch this fight where these dragons are burning people alive and you're watching their skin like buckle and crisp, and this guy cuts through someone and blood splatters the camera. And then you watch The Lord of the Rings and a guy gets his throat cut and just kind of, you hold it and he dies. And you're kind of like, wait a minute, that's not what should have happened.
Hold up.
I've seen this. I watched an episode yesterday, and the guy. Oh wait, different show. And I think that is what we need to say to ourselves. I think we need to look at that and go, all right, okay, kids show, family show, family show is not.
Because I was just sat there like, oh come on, where's the blood? Come on, he's had his throat slit. Show me a bit of blood. Come on.
Where's the begging for his life, pleading to his gods? Where's the anger? The guy didn't even swear.
He just dropped some water and died. Bless him.
So I think that's what we need to keep in mind with that. And like I said, when we're watching the two shows at the same time, because they are on at the same time, it can be a little bit like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, wait, yeah. This one's the family one. You're not gonna get that.
We don't even swear on this podcast. It's so family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When Arondir and Bronwyn start making the eye at each other, you're like, hey, I know what's coming up next. No, wait, that's House of the Dragon. That's not
wrong one. Yep.
Yeah, move on. But like I said, we do get these scenes, and we do get the guy, one of the elves does escape, but he gets taken down by archers, which is really kind of brutal. Arondir sees it happen.
Yeah.
And Arondir looks like it's the end for him. It looks like it's kind of like... And I'm watching it thinking... Is this show going to be a bit Game of Thrones with characters like, hey, meet this guy, isn't he great? You like him? He's dead. Or, I know, very different tone. Yeah, but there was a moment. I'm kind of glad. I don't think I could watch more than one show that's like that. I think I'll be traumatized. But he does get
making friends in real life just in case.
I know. He gets to the point where like I meet people and they're like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, yeah, I can't. No, go away. No, I can't handle it if you die. What? So, and they're like, we're going to introduce him to Adar. And he's like, oh, okay. And then we see, and it is the final scene of the episode, and we see, to me, what looks like an elf walking out in charge of the orcs.
It was funny. When they first said, get Adar, I genuinely thought they said, get Adam. And I was like, well, that's the least scary name possible. Get Adam! Oh no! It's Adam!
That will have to be the most grotesque, nasty-looking orc in the world with just a crazy human name. Because otherwise it's like, fetch Adam. Dun dun dun. Yeah.
Everyone's like, who the heck is Adam?
Yeah, Adam.
It sounds nice. Who's Adam?
Yeah, he's
like,
that
orc.
Yeah, that monster. Yeah, that monster over there dragging skulls of his victims. Adam, you say? Nice. Yeah, Adam's short for skull-crushing blood drinker. Oh, yeah, Adam. Yeah, Adam's nicer. So I don't know what's happening now. Now, I said in the podcast last week, for the lore of this show and all of the stuff, there are other content creators. We are going to be focusing on the TV, the entertainment aspect.
Yeah.
There is one thing that I do know from reading the books and stuff and years ago, and I don't know if it's applicable to this, but I am going to say it because I think it could be, and I think it's worth, and it could be what the show's hinting at, even if it's not that. And that is, when Sauron returned, he transformed himself into an elf. and appeared as an elf.
He called himself Adam.
He called himself Adam. Yeah. I don't remember. Now the funny thing is I don't. This is a long time ago. He literally could have been called Adar, and I could be saying this, and people are listening, going, "Yeah, idiot, we know."
Duh, come on.
Yeah, it's like literally, it's written as his name. I read this so long ago, and I am just trying to watch it, because I see so much content, and there's some brilliant stuff. But I'm like, wow, that is so heavy in detail, and I'm kind of like, I just want to kind of watch this and enjoy it. That is to a level I can't go. And so for me, I'm kind of like, it could be that, and it could be because, of course, in the lore, it is the elves, and we've already kind of seen that one elf asking to build a forge. We need a forge because we got this idea to create something. I'm confident that Adar is manipulating that great elf before, and they are going to forge the rings.
Yeah, I'm going to say my money's on the rings, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's what that is. But going to Galadriel then, because you mentioned about the Arondir story and how interesting it was. He's in the Southlands. Yeah. And Galadriel, as we remember, her brother died, and kind of like burned onto him was this insignia, which he then hunted. And while she's in this place called Númenor, which is like this island kingdom, she meets, or well, she doesn't meet, but she's saved by the sea captain called Elendil. I think it's Elendil.
I think that's as close as I'd get it, yep.
Yeah, Elendil. Who is ordered by his queen to... I think he's ordered to take her out.
Yeah, he was kind of like handed this sword and do a service, and I'm like, that to me, like, she's already mentioned treason because he brought an elf there.
Yeah.
And then do us a service, and he's like, "Oh, I'm here to keep an eye on you," and I'm like, "Are you?"
Yeah, not convinced. Not convinced that's what you were told to do at all, Sea Captain Elendil. But Elendil does talk to her. They talk, and they kind of... He talks about the fact that, look, not everyone here hates elves. Some of us, from where I grew up, we're still fond of the old ways.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like, "Oh, where did you grow up?" And he talks about a library, and she's like, "Oh, wow, can I, I need to be there. I need to look into something." So they head to this library, and when they get there, the curator of the library, she hands like the symbol, like anything you can find about this symbol. And he does find something. But what is interesting is she then learns it's not an insignia or a sigil. It's someone has tried to draw a map.
How silly do you reckon she feels now?
Oh, total moron. 1,000-odd years old, can't even tell the difference between a map and a sigil. Shocking.
Terrible.
And a human librarian. I know, and a human librarian points out, for an elf that must just be brutal. But she does realise it's the Southlands. And what I realise, when they're showing the map and everything, is the Southlands is Mordor.
Yeah, I wasn't convinced it was Mordor, but I'm looking at the map and I'm like, I recognise some of this. I'm recognising, and I'm like, I wonder.
Yeah, but the best thing is I then cause I'm like, oh, we've had loads of scenes around that. Yeah, the scenes have all got a stuffing great big mountain in the background. Mount Doom. It is literally there. Like, it was just there for anyone to see. And anyone who's up on the lore would have known all along. But for me, it was like, this is brand new information. And I've just worked it all out, watching it in front of me. And this is incredible. And then, of course, we realise that's where Arondir is. That's where Bronwyn and all those villages are.
Yeah.
And Galadriel saying, like, all these people are in great danger. Yeah, they are. This is where Sauron is going to create his own land. He's going to create his own place for evil to dwell.
Which is literally what the transcript that she has in front of her reads, a place for evil to thrive. And it's like, oh dear.
Oh, crap. Yeah.
I would like to pack my bags and leave faster than the burrows would. You know what I mean? I'm gone.
Yeah. How fast does your horsey go? One of the interesting things about the Sea Captain Elendil, by the way, is he has 2 kids. A daughter who seems very headstrong, very lovely young lady. He has a son. His son is called Isildur. Fans of the Lord of the Rings movies will know from the legend Isildur was the king of the humans. And it was Isildur who took the Ring of Power into the mountain to throw it into the fires and then decides, nah, I'm going to keep it.
Oh. Man, I feel like such a fraud on this podcast.
Well,
such a fraud.
Isildur is then, I mean, it's his heir is, you know, the ranger. Oh, God, his name's gone right out of my head and everyone's screaming at the podcast. Lord of the Rings, Viggo Mortensen's character.
The main guy, Aragorn.
Come on, mate. Say
no,
it.
because now I can't say it.
You can. You can do it. I can think of Boromir. I can think of everybody else. Frodo, Sam.
Aragorn. No.
Aragorn,
that's it.
Oh, man,
mate,
that was killing me.
That needs to be edited.
No. I want people to hear it. I want people to know the pain I went through there.
There's us going, there's Gimli. Legolas,
There's Gimli,
Frodo,
Legolas.
Merry Pippin.
I literally was down.
The really famous one.
I was nearly naming the orcs before I got there, but yeah.
Kevin,
Aragorn.
John.
So Aragorn is Isildur's heir. So again, we've just met Isildur, and I'm kind of like, whoa, hold on. His dad's a ship captain, but again, it is revealed in this they are from an ancient royal line, and they've just kind of moved away from it because for whatever is going on this island, they've abandoned elves, and they've got an issue which I'm not entirely sure what that is, but I'm guessing we're definitely going to find out.
Yeah, because his name also translates to friend of elf, which really upset the Queen.
Yeah, that's not going to go down well. Yeah, do not like elves at all. What's your name? Adam. But Galadriel realising her human companion is actually a king as well was my final note for this. Now, we've just had Elendil from a royal line, we know Isildur, and we know that history. We know that future. But her companion from the boat is also from a royal line. And he gets into a fight. And what I found really interesting about this is he clearly either has something in him which is evil, or he just knows he's a badass and didn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah,
because once that fight starts,
as well, didn't he? About it.
Yeah. Because when that fight starts, he's like, "Don't do this, don't do this." And once it starts, he just takes them out, and he's not just like defending himself, you know, a bit of defensive. Put them down. He's killing. He's going for them. He is literally
the guy's
fighting.
arm against the wall. Oh.
Yeah, that was brutal. Yeah, that wasn't family friendly. But again,
blood. Game of Thrones.
Anywhere.
That would have been bone through the arm, blood.
Yep, you're exactly right. So he is in that jail cell, and she talks to it, and I'm kind of like, okay, we're gonna learn more about him. Clearly, we're gonna learn more. But it's just interesting that she's there with two. Potentially human lines of royalty there on this island, but he is from the Southlands. He is in essence the leader of the Southlands. So is there something there? Because they talk a little bit about the humans of that area fought with the evil against the elves. So is it perhaps there's something? I think he says like, my ancestors made a deal, or he says, and I'm just wondering if there is a curse. I don't know. Something's there. Hopefully we'll find out more.
Because she's desperate to get to the Southlands. He's like desperate to not go anywhere near them. Yeah. And now it turns out that he doesn't want to go near them, and actually he's probably the king of the place. He doesn't want to go anywhere near. It's like something may have happened at some point there, which is not going to go down well when he returns.
No, we all know he's heading back because Galadriel isn't going to take a no. So the final thing to talk about from this episode then is the Harfoots again. We have this moment where we got one of the Harfoots is injured, and they have their little policy about we move, the caravan moves, and they have this ritual about people who get left behind. And I'm kind of like, wow, that's kind of hauntingly horrible, really. Like the lame and the sick, yeah, they're left behind, and they drink to them. And you see a couple of them like crying their eyes out during this because obviously it's their family who have been left behind.
Yeah, so this is brutal.
Yeah.
Poppy Proudfoot. We're going to drink to her entire family because they got hit by a landslide and she's the only one that survived.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
okay.
It's just like, we'll see you again. Yeah. And it's like, damn, this is quite a ritual. But the Harfoots are doing that, and the stranger, we're going to continue to be the stranger, decides to stumble into the camp, and he's revealed to the Harfoots. Obviously, this leads to muchos gracias, and people freaked out. I love the fact that their go-to is hide. Yeah, that was quite funny.
He's walked into the camp, he's seen you all, but we can hide behind this table.
Yeah, and it is quite funny how some of them hiding is literally like, I'm just going to hide behind this piece of grass. He can't see me if I don't move.
Yeah, it's the main Lenny Henry's character. It's literally, his hat is made out of grass, so he lays in the grass like, I'm gone.
Yeah, it is quite funny. But the Harfoots make the decision that, okay, your family can still come with us. We're not going to kick you out because of the actions of a young one, but you're at the back of the caravan, which is a big problem because he's injured. Their father's injured. And so they are falling behind. We've just found out that no matter what happens, you fall behind,
they
you
don't
get left.
Stay back with you.
No.
He's savage. Like you
could be the nicest Harfoot there is, but you don't keep up, you're gone. So they have fallen behind and they are in problems, but the stranger rocks up and she's kind of like, oh, he can help us. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going on with that. I'm still not sure who he is. I want it to be Gandalf for obvious reasons, because then he's a good guy. It would make sense why he's always got the affection for hobbits and why he's always around the hobbits. But like you said before, could just as easily be a bad guy. It could just as easily be someone really not good.
Yeah, and I'm kind of waiting for something to develop with this storyline, because
he started speaking. He said friend.
But I'm watching it, and there's that little part of me that's like, are these guys here just to remind us that hobbits come further on? Like, what are the... It's almost like people have gone like, right, we know the Lord of the Rings, the main character was a hobbit. Well, we haven't got anything like them at the moment, so put the Half-Foots in, because they're like hobbits, and it reminds them...
Well, their story is the stranger, obviously. Yeah. That is the arc there. So, he has to be something. Now, I did see online someone say, when you saw the scene with the meteorite crash into the Earth, there were several different sightings. Like, now I assumed when I watched it, it was the same one. Like, we saw Galadriel notice it in the sky, and we saw Arondir notice it in the sky, and then we saw the Harfoot see it hit the ground. So I just assumed it was the same one, but someone else had pointed out it was 5 different shots, and of course there were 5 wizards. So could it be that is who it is? It is the 5 wizards landing in Middle Earth, and so this is, as I hoped, it is Gandalf. So there's a theory out there.
Or it's going to end up being one of the other 4 that you're like, oh,
yeah, I don't like this one. Oh, this is the stupid one who talks to animals, idiot. Yeah. No one likes you.
The Wizard of Water, I can make it rain.
Look, his plant guy. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah. So, we'll have to wait and see. Mate, was there anything else from this episode you wanted to discuss or cover?
Oh, the only other thing was, so, like we said about the fight scene with the King of the Southlands.
Yeah.
His character, I think, is great. Like, the way... He's a very, very clever man.
He is, very, like, and doesn't like to show it.
Everyone, I'll pay for everyone's drinks. And as soon as he's walked away from it, you think I'm a good guy, I must leave. I was like, instantly, he's taken something. We'd already seen him take the knife off of the captain. And it's like, his character could be a lot of fun going forward.
I agree. And the fact there's that little edge as well, like, is there, like, you know, like in other characters like werewolves, like the guy's a good guy, but when there's a full moon, you know, so it's kind of it. There's an interesting edge to him there, which I hope they're going to explore and could be fun.
And the other thing is just, again, visually wise, it is stunning.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Even when they first go in, they sail into the new town. It's got like the faces in the mountains and everything. You're looking at it, you're like, wow, like some of this is CGI, which is absolutely incredible anyway. Other stuff is just natural beauty. And between it all, you're like, the people that have made this show clearly have loved.
They have spent the money and they've also spent the time.
Yeah.
You know, they worked on this and they got it right before it went to air. And I'm like every episode, I do find myself just sat there like, wow.
I want to go to New Zealand because this place is stunning.
Yeah. I mean, and New Zealand is a beautiful place. So, this it's not doing their tourism industry any harm. I know that.
No, that's for sure.
But, mate, that is it. That was season 1, episode 3. That was Adar. We will be back again next week to discuss episode 4. Now, coming up on the podcast, you'll still hear the She-Hulk episodes dropping every Friday. We do have a slight issue at the moment with Apple Podcasts, along with hundreds and hundreds of other podcasts, where it is simply not updating. So if you normally listen to us on Apple, at the moment you might be having that problem. Find us on Spotify, on YouTube, all the different places you can go, Amazon Music Podcasts. We will be putting that in the post for all the socials as well. So listen out for the She-Hulk on a Friday. House of the Dragon episode 5 airs Sunday into Monday next week. We will be bringing our breakdown of episodes 1 to 5 of that show next week. What day? We don't know yet, so keep an eye on socials and we'll tell you. Until next time we speak, everybody, you all take care.
Thank you for listening to the Stuff and Things podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find us on Facebook or online. Simply search the Stuff and Things podcast to join in our conversation every week.